When I was a young boy, I loved to spend time outdoors, and our family would often go camping in the summers, and we would do a lot of hiking while we were camping, and I still love to go hiking. And sometimes while we were out in the woods, my brothers and sisters and I would find a rock or a log, and we'd roll it over just to see all the bugs and the insects that were underneath, and many of them would begin to scramble whatever they could do to hide from the light. Last weekend, I shared 3 stories of encounters with God. A woman that I knew encountered God by volunteering at a woman's shelter. The Israelites encountered God at a rock on Mount Horeb. And the woman in our gospel reading last week encountered Jesus at the well. Today we have another encounter with God. A man blind from birth encounters Jesus and is then able to see. But before he heals him, before he spits on the ground and makes the clay, before he smears the clay on the man's eyes, before any of this, Jesus says this: we have to do the works of the one who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. We who sit here Sunday after Sunday know that Jesus is the light of the world. We celebrate the coming of that light every Christmas season. He has already come to us. We don't need to search for him. We don't have to wonder if we missed him. We simply have to celebrate rather than fear that someone has lifted the rock or the log that has sometimes covers us, and then we have to move comfortably and faithfully to the light. We have to allow ourselves this encounter with God. We have to allow ourselves this encounter with the light. And the good news is that I see it happening all the time. The other day I was talking to a woman who shared with me an experience she had, and she gave me permission to share this. She had a pretty serious health issue that she was facing and had an upcoming appointment with the doctor, and she had been praying about it. And she said, "Father, I don't know exactly what happened, but as I was praying, I just felt God telling me everything was going to be okay. It wasn't that I heard a voice or anything like that. I just know God was telling me that it was going to be okay, and I haven't worried about it ever since." My friends, that's what it means to walk in the light. Another person was telling me about their adoration time. He said, "My life, adoration has changed my life." Literally, he said, changed my life. I am a totally different person today than I was 3 years ago when I began to make that holy hour each week. That too is what it means to walk in the light. Today's gospel, last week's gospel, and next week's gospel are all about encounters with God. Today's gospel comes out of the 9th chapter of St. John's Gospel. And one of the things I really like about it is that it shows a great contrast between the man born blind as he moves to the light and the Pharisees and the scribes as they move away from the light. During the course of the blind man's interaction with Jesus, he makes a gradual progression from blindness to sight, from sight to insight, and then from insight to faith. The Pharisees, on the other hand, experience a gradual regression from sight to increasing blindness. Did you notice that as the Pharisees were exposed to more and more of the truth about who Jesus was and what he did, that they became more and more closed-minded and hardened against that truth? Their stubbornness led them to increasing darkness, while the blind man's openness led him increasingly into the light. And then once he is cured, the blind man tells his neighbors what happened to him and who it was that healed him. It was a man named Jesus. Later, when the Pharisees interrogate him, he boldly confesses that Jesus must be a prophet sent from God. Then, when he once again is under interrogation, the man born blind becomes an ardent defender of this healer and prophet. And finally, when he and Jesus meet once again, he ends up worshiping Jesus as his Lord. What a wonderful pilgrimage this man made, from moving from blindness to sight, to insight, and then to a faith relationship, and finally worshiping Jesus as his Lord. For some of us, That movement of faith takes 50, 60, 70 years. But for the man in our story today, it takes only a day or two. My friends, God's desire for us is that we make a similar pilgrimage of faith, that we move from not being able to see to seeing, from blindness to sight, from not understanding to understanding, from sight to insight, and then from unbelieving to believing, from insight to faith. That's God's desire for each and every one of us. You know, it's interesting that St. John doesn't say what happened to the blind man after the events that he recorded in today's gospel lesson. Did he go out and get a new job now that he could see? Did he go back home and try to evangelize his parents who had been so afraid when they were questioned by the Pharisees? Maybe he followed Jesus and after his resurrection helped to spread the good news. We don't know. John doesn't tell us that. But the point, though, is this. He almost certainly would not have ended his spiritual pilgrimage right then and there. Surely he did not say to himself, okay, now that I have faith, I have no need further to grow my faith. No, strangely enough, there are some Christians today who do just that. Like the Pharisees, they say to themselves, in my spiritual relationship with God, I've made it. Spiritually, I'm where I want to be, and that's where I'm going to stay. Hopefully, none of us ever reaches a level of faith that we're satisfied with. Hopefully, none of us foolishly believe that all you have to do once you become a Christian is to stay on the straight and narrow and maintain the status quo. My friends, that was the downfall of the Pharisees. Perhaps you've heard the saying, and I'm not sure who actually said it, but most often I've heard it attributed to self-help guru Tony Robbins. It goes like this: if you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not growing, you're dying. It's true of many, many things. It's also true of our faith. Never stop growing from blindness to sight. Never stop moving toward the light, from sight to insight. Never stop moving toward Jesus, from insight to faith.